Hello, everyone who's on the call. Thank you for joining us here today, and welcome to our masterclass series. And this particular class, Total Revenue Forecasting, or as we like to say, TRF. My name is Glenn. I'm the Managing Director for HSMAI Southeast Asia, and I'll be your host for today's session. Now, I'd like to introduce our distinguished speakers for today, if I can come off there. Okay, we have Professor Detlev Remy. So he's an associate professor at Singapore Institute of Technology, specializing in the areas of revenue and marketing. And Anders Johannson, who's the CEO and founder of Demand Calendar. So again, they're true experts in the field of revenue. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for making the time today. Now, before we kick off and I hand it back over to you, we'll just talk a little bit briefly about HSMAI. And first of all, it's decoding HSMAI and why we say that and not the name of the company, because it's a rather long one. So it's Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. Now we cover, we're a global organization, a not-for-profit organization with 4 key regions: the Americas, where it was founded, Europe, Middle East, and of course, Asia Pacific. Now we're celebrating our 95th birthday this year. We were founded in 1927, and we have over 7,000 professional members from 41 countries around the world. So in essence, HSMAI is like a professional society. We look after individuals and focus on networking and introducing those individuals to a larger network in the industry and improving knowledge and skills of our members. So we have a fairly significant amount of educational events, this being one of them, and also an academy, which I'll go into a bit more in a couple of minutes. Okay, now in terms of our structure, we are a membership organization, an individual membership organization. So if you are interested in becoming a member, for example, today's masterclass is part of the membership. Instead of paying US 35, I think it was, it'll be free for members, and we conduct these regularly throughout the year. And also we have many industry events, local networkings, newsletters, and also job opportunities. So if you are interested in joining our society of professionals in the hotel and hospitality space, then please visit our website, hsmaiasia.org/membership to learn more and reach out to us. Okay, a significant part of HSMAI is our academy. So we have 3 certifications, over 20 online courses, and 2 certificate programs. So if you are looking at upskilling, again, this is a really one-stop shop where you can go onto our website on the HSMAI Academy and research what area that you're interested in, whether it's a short, quick refresher course or a certification. Now, speaking of that, we are globally known for, you probably heard of 2, the Certified Revenue Management Executive, CRME. Most people in the industry know this or have obtained it if they're serious about the revenue space. And also the CHDM, the Certified Hotel Digital Marketer, which is also very popular. So again, you can just go onto HSMAI Academy, research more about it. And if you're interested, reach out to us. It's very straightforward, all completed online. Okay, coming up tomorrow, we have yet another masterclass, and this time it's more in the marketing space, using content to improve online conversion. So more so a commercial discipline, using your marketing to generate further revenue. So that'll be another great event. So if you are interested in that, please, again, visit our website and you can register there. All right, in 2023, we have 2 main events in the region, 2 sort of marquee events. We have lots of more smaller networking and social and educational events, but our 2 regional events, the HSMAI Rock Asia Pacific. If you were there this year, you would know it was a great event. Next year, that's going to be on 11-12 May. And then we also have the Digital Marketing Strategy Conference in Phuket, Thailand on the 23rd of August. So you can discover more about that on the website, and please mark your calendars so you can see it coming up next year, and we'd certainly love to have you. Now this, just briefly, this masterclass was born out of HSMAI Rock Asia Pacific, which was held in Singapore in June this year at Marina Bay Sands. And it was a fantastic event. 80% of the people hadn't been in an in-person event for over 2 years. So we were very early out of the gates once the borders opened with our marquee event. So we had about over 150 attendees, and they range from the C-suite right through to the hotel management team. So if you are someone interested in commercial or revenue disciplines, you should definitely mark your calendar for this year. It'll be bigger and better this year. We're expecting over 200 packs this year. And it's a great networking opportunity as well as really educational. And you'll see the latest insights from so many great speakers in what's happening in our industry. Okay, now to stay connected, just follow us on our social platforms, link in bio, HSMAI Asia Pacific, or you can just contact us directly on info@hsmai-asia.org. Now, back to why we're all here today. If you have any questions, you don't need to raise your hand. You can just use the Q&A function. But what we're thinking of doing is once the class is underway, I think I'll make all of our attendees on the panel. So you can either turn your camera on or leave it off and just have a screensaver, but you'll have the ability to interact at any time and speak directly to both presenters and join the class. We'd like it to be more of a workshop-based class format, not really just being presented at you. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Detlev and Anders, and I'll see you throughout the class. All right, yeah. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. And let me just...
Yeah, so I stopped sharing. Detlev, you just share yours.
Okay, here we are, and it's on screen mode.
There we go. If you just do slideshow, view show.
Okay, so it's there, right? Good.
Yes.
Yeah, warm welcome and great pleasure to have Anders with me. And we have run this masterclass at the ROC conference. Was it August, September? I already forgot. It's long time ago.
June.
Yes, the year has flown since then.
Yeah.
The year comes to an end. We realize this. So the focus is should be a very interactive workshop. So please feel to participate in any form, and also use the chat function so we can check then, and we will have also some small exercises if time permits, you know, to focus on some scenarios. Let's start. I just have to put it here. Okay, it works this way. Can you see? Yeah. So we have 3 areas where we would like to discuss with you, talk about the main domain of total revenue management, then how to make it work, and then a kind of action plan for total revenue forecast. Now, I have to say, unfortunately or fortunately, this is a relative new domain. It's discussed since about 20 years, total revenue management. You even hear that some chains make the claim they run total revenue management. If you look at this much more in detail, it is not really total revenue management. So it's worth to discuss look at the bigger picture and then to break it down in total revenue forecast methodology. So we have to discuss what is it and why now, how does it work, and what are possible implications of this as well. Now, the question why now and what is it, it's quite simple. It is to look at the all-over picture, total revenue management as a not totality of the rooms revenue as such, but in any way as a revenues from F&B, revenues from spa and wellness, and any other revenue generating department. And the why question is quite simple to answer, because we have to recoup losses from COVID, and we have faced major losses within this 2.5, almost 3 years. But it's also, we still working in silos, marketing, sales, revenue management. So we have to gain synergies, and total revenue management is a wonderful approach to go forward with this idea to break down the silos. And and this is where we move on later for total revenue forecast, to bring up kind of bold approach. We are still running in this century of inventory-centric revenue management practice. So if you look at RevPAR, revenue per available room per available inventory, But the major asset we have, and we should focus on, and we should very, very hard, working hard on this, is definitely customer base and not the inventory as such. So that's where we want to bring you forward to the stage. And Anders, anytime you like to add something or to correct me, please feel free. Feel free to get me there. Now,
do you mind just hitting share? I mean, slideshow. If you hit slideshow, your PowerPoint will just show it a bit bigger on screen.
Oh, one moment. Where is it?
Yeah, it's on the right where your cursor is. Oh, that's my cursor. On the top, it says slideshow.
One moment. Stop video possible. Because normally I also was surprised to see it that way.
Yeah, so on your top panel where your menu bar is, at the top, you'll see animate transitions, animations, slideshow. If you just hit slideshow, or you can do it down the bottom.
I don't see it on top of the bottom. Where you see this?
Oh, okay. All right, maybe you're not seeing it there. Okay.
No, I don't see it. But it's true. Just let me check some. It should be there. Why is it not working this way?
So you should be able to see your cursor on screen, and
I see my cursor, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the top menu, all the
right
menus, file, home, insert, drawer.
Yeah. But I don't.
Detlev, if you are using two screens, then that might be the problem.
I'm using two screens. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, maybe that's it.
So you have to be on the same screen as the Zoom call.
Okay.
But I think I just managed this. No, I work on two screens. Apologize. You know, we are so sophisticated here in Singapore.
That's it. Now we can see it.
Now we've got it. Okay, excellent.
Anyway, let's move forward. There is some confusion in terms of terminology between total revenue management and ancillary revenues, and it's not sometimes easy to differentiate. But normally, we talk about TRM. That means the totality, the sum of all revenue-generating departments. So, as I said, it's rooms, it's F&B, banqueting, MICE, spa, wellness, whatever, and ancillary revenues. Examples are minibar, laundry services, some spa services, merchandising, fitness center, internet access, all such things. This is worth a whole webinar on its own, how to focus on ancillary revenues and to optimize ancillary revenues, but the time wouldn't permit for this. Now, move on. As this is, despite discussions more on the academic level, discussion about total revenue management, it's a challenge, especially for the industry itself, you know, to apply and later to implement. Let's say they see it as a challenge. It's not necessarily a challenge, but challenge is always meant to see as a task, you know, to overcome and to deal with. So we have definitely some legacy technologies. That means it's not really there. It's not really at the moment one appropriate revenue management platform system there to cover all of this in terms of integration. So it means in terms of data integration, the flow of data interface from POS to PMS it's given, but it's not the totality of data we would need. We would need very granular data, and this is at the moment not there. And of course, we have also, which is a bit strange, but we have a lack of trained revenue management staff. The revenue analyst and the revenue management people are well trained in rooms revenue management, but not that much in F&B revenue management or spa revenue management. And these are different departments in terms of operational challenges, in terms of revenue optimization potential, in terms of data flow, all such aspects. So it's not easy. Therefore, the focus is still there on rooms revenue management. The tracking of guest flow spending in all outlets. It's a challenge, as I mentioned, that the POS system don't talk properly with the PMS system or RMS system. So the data flow is there, but not at the granular level which we need. And then also an issue is lack of metrics. Apart from TRevPAR, which is used in the industry, but total revenue per available room, also discussions to have it as a uniform metric that you can really compare and benchmark it across the industry. Sorry, Anders, you want to add something?
Yeah. So I totally agree with you, Detlev, about the knowledge also within revenue management, because the revenue managers has been very focused on rooms, and selling rooms is a totally different story than selling all the other type of revenue sources, and maybe the revenue managers need to educate themselves a little bit more in other revenue sources, and also with the metrics, it's maybe we need to move away a little bit from the capacity utilization metrics, because it's in a revenue manager brain, there is always the capacity somewhere, that it's TRevPAR, it's RevPASH, it's all these revenue per something capacity. And maybe when we move to the customer part, it's more like measuring things based on the customer, but we'll get back to that later in the webinar also.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, very good points, and we discuss this also further on, because it's if you focus on TRM and TRF, it's requested certainly a change of mindset. And if I go back to one point, and hopefully I keep it very short, the view was up to COVID, it's rooms revenue management, majority of revenues coming from rooms, etc., etc. And it was working well, and it was more or less also the case. But now in COVID, we realized here in Singapore, but also in other countries, that there was no hotel rooms revenue because hotels have been closed, or they had not been allowed to accommodate any customers. So the focus shifted quite quickly for many hotels to F&B. F&B, maybe even merchandise or wellness, etc., etc. So by force, revenue management has learned it the hard way to look at other revenue management applications, in this case of F&B, whatever, although the results have not been all over not very promising, but it's true, they have to look at the bigger picture, not only rooms revenue. Now, where to start? The most promising areas, and we have their case studies, and we see also some industry examples, definitely food and beverage as a gastronomy, and function space, and to a certain extent even spa, if you have a sufficient big enough spa area, spa department. Okay, now let me move on. Yeah, so total revenue management, how to implement. I just checked, was I sliding through this too quick? No, I'm good.
No.
The starting point is always like in any other area. If you initiate a project, whatever, you have to inform your stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders, about this project and what is the aim. And the aim is to optimize your revenues, to gain synergies between the departments, of course, also to minimize cost, and to place a new focus and a better focus also on customer needs and wants. Now, if you share this with your relevant and important stakeholders, I think they get the message. And the stakeholders are the general manager, hotel manager, the revenue manager, the head of departments, and also chief financial officer. We come back to this also later stage. That he has a really important role in this revenue forecasting process. Okay, now how to implement? It starts with planning. Develop a project plan. It means it focuses on the cost factors, planning the resources needed, the timeline, and of course any possible risk. And risk could be that you alienate your customers, or you alienate certain stakeholders because they don't get it or they don't want to have this project. So you have to look at all this typical project management plan. To execute this, you have to outline how the workflow looks like between revenue management team, the hotel manager, the general manager, and other stakeholders, head of departments, etc. Workflow, who is doing what, shared work, data flow, etc., etc. And as always, if you initiate a project, it's all about monitoring, controlling. You have to review the change controls and make sure that you monitor this regularly to see that we're on the right track and not going different ways as they should. So, as I said, it's inform, but it's also to convince the relevant stakeholders. Inform is one aspect, but inform doesn't mean that they agree to this. You have to convince them. How can you convince stakeholders, relevant stakeholders? More revenues, less cost, and more customers and more satisfied customers. If you look at these three respective four pillars, you realize there's a huge potential to convince your stakeholders. You have also, as part of this journey, to educate your staff, and this goes from GM, hotel manager, down to the frontline staff, cost of room distribution, cost of customer acquisition. This is an important aspect. You come back to this at a later stage for a simple reason. We take it often enough for granted that there is a need to acquire new customers and it costs us something. Although most people even don't have a clue how much it costs us to acquire a new customer. And there's the saying, it's 5 times cheaper to retain a customer, but 5 times means 5 times of what? 5 times a basket of apples or pears or whatever. So we have to train them on the cost aspects, that they understand the need for a change. Then we have to create a revenue culture that people at every stage where they are, relevant stakeholders or maybe not so relevant stakeholders, realize that their job is in their 8 or 12-hour shift, whatever, to create revenue, to create yield. It's not that they serve, but within serving, they also have to create revenue. It's nice to work for free. It's nice to have kind of charity mindset, but hotels, hospitality business are for-profit business, and therefore we have to focus on this. And we have to look very much in this aspect of data analytics in terms of defining data sources, but also data quality, and then synchronize data flow information, because this brings us to total revenue forecast. The action plan for all those now who feel okay, encouraged to say, why not? We should try for it, because we have several revenue generating departments and we want to try to integrate this in terms of total revenue management. It is, look at the path for total revenue management. It could be sequential, concurrently, whatever way you run it, but just make sure you don't forget any aspects of this action plan. So involve all stakeholders, run a SWOT analysis for your rooms division, same for F&B, for spa. Some departments are just running, are just operational, but they are not really special or specific. Now, if you're not special, if you're not specific, you might have a problem to raise your price points, because people say, what for? If it's just there, if it's just operational, but it's nothing special, what your restaurant, whatever, and you say we go for premium for weekends or for Friday evenings, people might ask the question, why should I pay the price if you are not in any way different or special? Very important point. You look at your revenue cost structure, you identify the business flow and the key revenue drivers. It could be corporate business, could be group business, could be a seasonal demand, etc., etc. You have to have access to data, use the data from the last 3 years. Now, I know you say last 3 years, almost 3 years COVID. Okay, in this case, you have to go back in the 2 to 3 years before COVID and integrate COVID data to a certain extent to get an idea. There is some hope, and there's a saying that 2023, 2024, depending on the region where we are going back to normal. So this is some hope in this. Understand patterns, could be seasonal, could be local demand, could be loyalty, could be brand loyalty. So we have to look at different aspects. And you see, if I look at just this aspect of loyalty, so we have to talk to the marketing sales guys, because they know much better about the loyalty status of our customer base than we would know. It is very much to review your value proposition. As I said, if you're not special, if you're not specific, if you're all or not something, very clear in the mindset of customers what you're standing for, you have already a problem if you want to go upwards in terms of premium pricing or raising your price points. Discounting is a different story, and I was never in favor of discounting. Discounting is not the way to do. Let's say it this way. Okay, check for trends and demand patterns. Investigate customer flow. Now, customer flow in two ways. You all have heard, hopefully, what's a customer journey. A really important concept where your customers start dreaming about your hotel or your restaurant, where they're inspired, where they search, where they plan, when they book, where they book, etc., plus up to the stage of after sales. Okay, look at consumption pattern. If you have your different market segments, how do they spend their money at your premise? Is it just that they have a corporate account and they are just allowed to stay the night and have a breakfast and maybe a coffee in the afternoon, but no dinner, no drinks? Or are they leisure customers and all such things? In a certain way, you cluster them, and there are certain patterns which are important to know. Remove obstacles and barriers for revenue optimization. There are many, by the way, and it was also worth a whole webinar to focus just on this aspect. Simplify the booking process. If you look at and we can learn from the bigger players, we can learn from OTAs. Booking.com, 3-stage process, 3 steps process, and that's it. When you go to any hotel of your choice, and sometimes takes 5, 6, 7 steps before you finalize the booking process. This is, let me say it in my own words, it's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? You know, we should learn from best practice, not from worst practice. Now, it's also about convenience, but it's all done if you are coming back to the platform, if you come back to the landing page or to a website that's already they recognize you, etc., kind of remarketing and already upselling integrated, etc., etc. Upselling means hotel category, you book the lowest hotel category because it's the cheapest one, and we're upselling to the next category at a reasonable amount. These could be already automatically integrated. Organized responsibility processes, who is in charge for what, including all the stakeholders, very much with sharing information. Big issue in our industry. Our industry is not really transparent, not information or KPIs are not really shared amongst the stakeholders. Lines of reporting, and also put it in practice to describe the data flow and to be very clear about this, who has to provide which data of which standards, which quality, etc., etc. So all in all, create a total revenue optimization culture. Involve stakeholders, share information, interdepartmental, have a flexible multitasking workforce. Not that the revenue manager in charge for rooms, just look at rooms, but also for others, that he share the information, that he explain the information to other stakeholders, and also very much also from my background, use data analytics for KPIs, for sharing and for benchmarking.
Yeah, so I can add some things on this, and it's maybe this sounds a little bit theoretical, but it's an overview, and you can use this as a checklist. But all hotels are different. It's a very different story if you work with total revenue management or total revenue forecasting for a resort hotel compared to a more like a city center business travel type of hotel. So that's why we also have this in a more general format, but you have to, it's still very usable as a checklist, and you can go through this and you can identify the stakeholders, you can identify the KPIs and etc. for your specific hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. And we discussed this beforehand, you know, how to structure this. And it's true, we have such a variety of hospitality business, hotels, whatever. So it must be kept quite general. But of course, once you go to the implementation process, by the way, you can also feel free to ask us to approach us. You know, we are happy to give some guidance. Once you develop it for your premise, it's getting much clearer if you follow a certain checklist. Okay, forecasting, and I also look at Anders, but he likes to step in anytime, please. Forecasting is a key aspect of revenue management. Yeah. And much like weather forecasting, we apply forecasting in a very scientific manner, you know, because if we don't know how much demand we can expect, how can we allocate inventory and how can we price accordingly? So forecasting is no question, it is much needed, and the success of revenue management is based on a proper and accurate forecasting. Yeah, it is, or it was, still is, very much focused on rooms revenue, and let's face it, rooms revenue management or rooms forecasting is not really rocket science. And once you have established a system, you can follow it and it's quite okay. Therefore, if you look at other areas, food and beverage, meeting, retail, parking, it's a different story. Food and beverage is much more influenced by other factors, sometimes by weather. If it's a sunny day, it's a rainy day, people don't go for socializing, whatever. So it's let's say more complicated or needs more work than rooms forecasting. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can add there also that the competition also in terms of when you sell rooms, you compete with other hoteliers or other accommodation places, and you have a very well defined market in terms of competition. You know all your competition. But if you forecast food and beverage, it's like the guest has a lot of different choices. They can go to the hotel restaurant, they can go to the convenience store to buy some food, they can go to a food truck, they can go to a restaurant outside the hotel in the city, somewhere in the city. They can also skip the meal altogether, they can go out for a run, and so the competition is much broader, and then that makes it more complex also to forecast food and beverage and some of the other revenue sources.
Right. In the interest of time, I realized I have to speed up a bit, so I fly through some slides, please forgive me. But of course, it's a very complex construct. If you look at total revenue forecast, in this case, you have rooms, and you have groups, and you have MICE bookings, and you have leverage on. You have to leverage on this. Okay. Now you see, I flying over a bit. I think the slideshow will be later available, so no big issue. But the importance of total revenue forecast in order to really to make clear to the audience, you know, what you can expect from this. If you think about this, to apply this, you know, it is really a chance to optimize your revenues and reduce cost. Therefore, increase profitability. That's the normal, that's the logic of this, right? And it's also an aspect of asset optimization. It means your owners will like the idea very much so. And also, of course, within all this, a better alignment of resources. So there is not really anything where you can say, what are the negative aspects? It's quite positive if it works. And that's the point, to make it work. Okay. The traditional approach of revenue forecast, I fly over this because it's known, all of you doing so. So not really where I have to spend too much time on this. Analyze all the revenue sources, and there are many of them. You define forecasting categories. Different forecasting methods can be also applied. You're collecting data, allocate responsibility, who is doing the forecasting process, and you use certain system and tools. Okay, 2 ways to get started. Start forecasting your revenue source, and then you add up that to total revenue. Another way is to start with required profit, add a fixed cost, required profit, and fixed cost work fine for a full year, but of course it will not really work for day-by-day forecasting methods. What are the problems of a traditional forecasting approach? As by the way, it worked years and years. I'm not saying, or we are not saying, skip it. We are just proposing maybe a new and bold approach, and maybe this one can run for a certain time concurrently. And once you switch, then to see what is better suited for your hotel premise. The traditional approach, too many head of departments are involved in forecasting, although there's a lack of communication and working in silos. You see here the revenue managers forecasting rooms and revenue, F&B manager forecasts F&B revenue, banquet manager, meeting manager forecasts meeting revenue, including F&B. Already, how does it work? You see, there might be an overlap and lack of communication doesn't help that much. Spa manager forecasts spa revenue. Okay, and then think about spa and F&B also. We talk about two major streams, in-house customers and then the locals. And this must be also combined in forecasting. Other, it's not easy. So different forecasting methods, also different departments. You know, it's quite strange. Rooms forecast, you see quite well-established forecasting methods, could be also from Monte Carlo to a pickup method, etc. Why you see then for F&B, spa, very simple forecasting methods. You start always wondering why we don't apply the same like for rooms revenue or for rooms forecasting. And of course, therefore, we can see, and often enough, it's quite obviously double counts and forecasting errors are almost inevitable. So we also have this problem, and we are moving towards this. We have a lack of common identifier. Now we have the revenue sources, but the common identifier is the guest, isn't it? The customer as such. What is his all-over spending pattern? Is it just the rooms revenue and then cut? But what's with all the other spendings he is doing in a hotel premise, right? He goes for treatment or etc. He goes for dinner, hotel bar, etc., etc. So the bold and modern approach is start from your most important asset for customers. The idea is big picture to replace the traditional RevPAR with RevPAC, revenue per customer, because customers is what is of value for your hospitality business. Okay, and of course within also, and it's interdependence, you know, to look much more closer at the customer acquisition cost and the customer lifetime value, because this is a major cost factor. It's still growing, increasing, and it shrinks your almost slim profit margin furthermore. Anders, please feel free to step in.
Yeah. So I've been working quite a lot with the customer acquisition cost and try to get my head around that, and it's a huge cost factor nowadays. Back in the 1990s, it was more like 6% or 5-6%, and now it's up to 15 to 25% of total revenue. So how did that happen? Well, the distribution landscape changed quite dramatically with the growth of the OTAs, for example. But it was also a higher competition about the guest, and the hotels started to compete, and they started also to put more money into marketing and sales to actually attract the guest. And so that is are the major factors that this increased. And if we go to the next slide and we look at what are the different factors of the customer acquisition cost. So then it's there are 4 different parts of a customer acquisition cost. There is commissions, and that's commissions paid to OTAs, for example, or to travel agents. And there, to complicate things, there are also 2 different models. There is a retail model where you actually get the money to the hotel, and then you send money to the entity that needs the commission. But there is also the merchant model where you actually give a net rate to someone, and they will add money on top of that. And then the second part is channel cost, or I call that transportation cost, transportation of the reservation. So that's fixed cost for distribution channels like the GDS transaction costs, for example, and other costs for channel managers and so on. And then the third one is loyalty program cost. If you participate in a loyalty program, they will probably charge you something when you give points to the guests staying in your hotel, and maybe you even have to pay something, or you won't get 100% reimbursed when they use points staying in your property. And then there are all other costs, like a cost for the website, cost for the search engine optimization and marketing, and all your advertising, marketing, sales, revenue, reservations, all the costs, including labor costs for all the people working in the hotel with commercial work. So then you have to also, the next step is to be able to analyze the customer acquisition cost based on per customer, per stay, per a lot of different aspects, like where are they coming from, what rate are they paying, what room type are they staying in, and so on. So it's a lot of work to actually put together the customer acquisition cost, so you really understand what is going on. So the whole idea is to get a grip on the customer acquisition cost, and 1% lower customer acquisition cost has a huge impact on the profit, because it's a saved cost. So you will actually, that is equivalent to extra profit. And the way you can actually decrease the customer acquisition cost is, like, you can sell more to each guest, or you can actually manage the customer acquisition cost. So you can decrease the cost also. Drive direct business, it's easy to say, it's the wet dream of any hotelier, but if you don't have a full grip on the cost for maintaining your website, working with marketing and so on. I talked to a hotelier here in the Nordics, and he said that I'm very good at driving a business direct, but I'm also calculating the cost of acquisition in that channel, and it's up to 11-12%. So the difference between that channel and booking that charges 15% is not that big. So there are also a lot of things to take into consideration. So back to you, Detlev, and total revenue forecast.
Okay. Now, as I said, it's a very bold approach, and I would consider this to run it as a kind of pilot project, and to run it concurrently. If you have hotel openings, different story, but when you select the customer base data, etc. The first proposed step is to start to forecast revenue from your existing customers plus personas. Now, reason being, you have existing customers, and hopefully you have a CRM and PMS database with loads of granular data to say existing customer XYZ spends so much nights a year there in a certain room category, and additional consumption patterns or spendings are in this departments, blah, 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 all such things. Now, if you have this data, granular data, you have a common identifier, you're already very good stage. Not many hotels might have it, so the idea is to say we don't know of all our existing customers, although they share certain patterns, so we build so-called marketing personas. Cluster people with the same patterns, same behavior patterns, spending patterns together. That's the easy way to build a quite massive customer database, always built on existing customers, okay? Now you look at them like existing customer, purpose of travel, demographics, but also on very important spending patterns. The forecast is based on total customer spend of a given customer. So as not only the spending on rooms revenue, but total customer spend. The challenge, I'm not saying problem, although it might be a problem for certain people, is where can I find information and where can I put all together. the information is CRM, PMS, but also in loyalty programs. Now, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to say, okay, we scrape through this data and we crunch this data, whatever. I'm doing consultancy here in Singapore, and I always say go for a customer data platform, CDP. Cloud-based, start with a small project where you link PMS, CRM, and loyalty program together to get an idea about the data flow and also data integrity and the data quality. It's quite a good starting point, because you might not maybe know or believe it, you have massive amount of data about your customers, but sometimes quite challenging to put it all together, get a big picture. Okay, now in the interest of time, we guess we have to skip it, this exercise, but common identifier is, you can, but feel free to use the chat function if you want to like to add something. Common identifier is, how to get this. We already understand it's a customer, let's say customer Professor Remy, but do you have one customer Professor Remy, or do you have several ones? My example is always here, Fairmont Hotel in Singapore. I think they have 4 customer profiles Professor Remy, because the first time I booked via booking.com, second time repeat business, but they didn't realize this, so they opened a new account for me. Third time via their Swiss Circle loyalty program, and fourth time with a different email. I think it was then a private email, whatever. Now, it's a challenge. I don't blame them. It's a challenge for hotels to put it all together. What's a common identifier? Is it the email? As already outlined, everybody has a couple of different emails, not the email. Email is not really a way forward. Birth date, yeah, but birth date on its own, combination with a name, first name might be a way to do. And it is not that I say I have a perfect solution for this, but it's a starting point. You have to have a common identifier. I worked with a startup company in Germany together. They have this solution to crunch through a huge amount of data in the CRM system, to get rid of the duplicates. And the base of this is to have a common identifier. They use birthday, name, and nationality. It's one way, and I guess it's a good way. Okay.
Yeah, you can add to that a little bit also in terms of a lot of systems are siloed. So you have a separate spa system, you have a separate F&B system, you have a separate system for the hotel, of course, but maybe for other sources as well. And it's very difficult to connect the systems and also to identify the person or the guest within those different systems. So that's why you would benefit greatly by having a common identifier between the systems.
Absolutely.
But there are also some newer PMS vendors. They have integrated food and beverage, spa, and meetings and the hotel rooms in the same system, and then you have one customer and one identity for each customer, and you can track the spending for everything that customer spends.
Yeah, although I have to say, as I would like to use one example, as I can take my own example. I think there's a policy at my university where we are allowed to have a dinner, whatever, if we go abroad, but I think we cannot consume alcohol, which is a bit sad, but okay, can happen. Okay, so it means if I go to a hotel restaurant, I might pay for my dinner, or I say no, put it on my room account, etc. But the alcohol, please split, and I pay the alcohol cash or via credit card. But the question is how you can capture this data, because this is part of my spending consumption. So it means you have to be careful about this. You have to find a way to train, but also upskill your staff, to look at data capture. That's important. Sometimes it's still, way manual process, but this is a company policy. You have to acknowledge as it is. Okay, let's move on. Define repeat business, because as I said, starting point, existing customers plus personas. Now we have to add the aspect of repeat business. Repeat business via direct booking, which you can hopefully easily acknowledge in your system. Frequency of visit, stay, and membership loyalty program. All the data must be available in CRM and loyalty program. Amenity used, also data points which you can easily get from the system. Potential for ancillary revenue or higher spending patterns could be inquiries or requests, or even upselling done, completed social media presence. This goes more in the direction of digital marketing, but also posting reviews, referrals. All this could also be an idea of the worth of a customer. The customer might spend, let's say, not that much, but he is very active on social media in terms of posting reviews regarding his few hotel stays. And therefore, he has the potential for referral business and very good customer worth as such. Then we have to link it to the referral, as I outlined already, the ability to bring other people to the business, and it's also linked to the customer lifetime value. We come back to this. Here, we discuss this in the common identifier, so I follow this suit, but also we, in the interest of time, I think we have to skip this. Criteria for persona profile. Now, in this case, we have to be a bit careful about this, but persona profile is, the purpose is to cluster around for certain people with same patterns, spending, etc. But it depends a bit on your hotel category, on your market segmentation policies, etc. How do you build up these personas? Mostly it's demographics, behavior patterns, and spending patterns. And I always urge them not to go too big for personas, to bring it down to relatively granular data level so you can work it out in the most optimized way. Then we focus on existing customer spend. We should not forget the ancillary customers or ancillary revenues per guest. For example, cash pay transaction via POS or anything else. And you would wonder, merchandise, retail, for example, parking fees, such things are often enough paid cash and not put it on the corporate account or rooms account, etc. And fourth, add and multiply the customer lifetime value of customers. Customer lifetime value. No. Customer lifetime value. Here again, the step one is total customer spend of a given customer, the times and frequency of stay, then the estimated or number of referrals and spend, and the customer lifetime value to multiply with. This concept of CLV is practiced in many other industries. I always take this very famous example of the car industry. The question is, I asked them, how many cars normal person, or we differentiate between men and women, buys in his lifetime. The good news is women buy less cars. And why is this so? Because men have more accidents. Statistically, it's true, women are better drivers, so men have to buy some more cars due to their car accidents cost. Okay, so we talk about, there are some different figures, but in the range of 5 to 7 cars in a lifetime, whatever, okay? And if you look at then BMW or Volkswagen or others of the Japanese brands, they have always this entry level. Let's take BMW. The entry level is to buy a Mini or Mini Cooper, although it's quite expensive. You move on, you move up in your career ladder, you buy a BMW 3 Series and 5 Series. And once you are very good and you have done a great job, you will be promoted to the CEO of a hotel company, you drive a Rolls Royce, also BMW family. Okay, so these companies, these industry understood the customer lifetime value of a customer, always based on the assumption the customer stays with a brand. So it's linked to brand loyalty. And if a customer has a certain brand loyalty, for example, I love Shangri-La, I love Four Seasons. I go wherever I can there, if I have the money, okay, of course. Okay, so that means they can do the customer lifetime value of Professor Remy. My remaining life expectancy, it's okay, it's not great anymore, but it's okay. But if you look at my students, for example, they are in the age of 20 to 25, their customer lifetime value is amazing. And therefore, it's an important concept to look at this. Not customer coming once and that's it, gone, are they? No, they should be coming back, repeat business, and each time is a kind of value for this. So there are certain ways to calculate the CLV calculator. Unfortunately, time is flying. We have to move on. But Anders, please feel free to step in anytime.
Yeah, so calculating the customer lifetime, you can speed up to the next slide as well. There are different ways to calculate this. And first of all, maybe we have to differentiate between the B2B customer and B2C customers. So the B2C, if we start with that, it's more like the consumers or the guests and the guest lifetime value. So I think very few guests return to the same hotel, and that makes it more difficult to calculate the customer lifetime value. But you could also focus on getting positive guest reviews. So it's sort of a returning guest, but it will be someone else coming back.
If I may step into this, Anders, because we have a quite good discussion about this at our last masterclass in Singapore. I agree with you as always, and I disagree with you also to a certain extent, because yes, we might not come back to the hotel itself. Times have changed. I remember my parents went back to the hotel every year for their lifetime, but this was a different generation. But nowadays it's changed. But they might not go back to the hotel, but they might go back to the chain at different locations. So what you say is right. It's right.
Yeah, the chain, from a chain level or from the mega chain level, it's a little bit easier to make these calculations, because then you have all your guests in the loyalty program, and you can direct them to the different hotels within the chain. Right. And then the second part here is the B2B customer lifetime. So that is probably a little bit easier, because you can have returning MICE customers, or you have contracted customers, like you have the corporate contract, and you can renew that year after year after year, and that has tremendous value for the hotel. But then how do you calculate the customer lifetime value? So there are 4 components. The average stay value, so how much would the guest actually spend? And here we come back then to the total revenue management part, that we have to include all the revenue sources in the spending of the average stay value. And this is also has a lot of dimensions in terms of how many nights do they stay, what do they spend within the hotel, do they spend the money in the spa and in the F&B and different F&B outlets and so on. And then the second part is the stay frequency. So how many times do they stay during a year, or how often do they come back, or how often do they recommend the hotel and someone else will come back and stay in the hotel. And then the third one is the gross margin. So how much customer lifetime value is calculated on how profitable the customer is, what kind of profit contribution are they giving to the hotel. So you have to understand the gross margin. So total revenue minus the cost of goods, or cost of producing the food and beverage, and also the service, and see what is that margin. And then the final part is the churn rate. So how many customers do you actually lose? And you can lose a customer in several different ways. You can lose the customer because they are not coming back because you had a lousy service, but you can also, and that's terrible, that's all on you as a hotel. But you can also lose the customer because you have your hotel in a once in a lifetime type of destination. They will never ever come back because they've been to that destination once in their life, and that's good enough. So how can you increase your customer lifetime value? You can increase the average stay value. So if you sell more to each guest while they stay at the hotel, and you can also increase the stay frequency. They can come more often, or they can recommend the hotel to more people they know. You can increase the gross margin. So with a few percent, that will make a huge difference. Or you can decrease the churn rate, that they will not leave your hotel or your mega chain hotel for another chain. So length of stay, some practical advice how to increase the average stay value. So work with the length of stay and give them incentives at the time of the booking. You can also work with the room types and upgrade to next category and upsell. Pre-arrival, you have to upsell the guests for not only the room type, but you can also sell other things to them. You have probably had pre-arrival emails where you are offered champagne or flowers in the room or something like that. And upon arrival, you can upsell to the next room category. If you are not fully sold out already, you can probably sell up to the next available room category. And then don't forget to continue to sell more things to the guests while they are staying on the property. And that's a lot of incremental spend on incidentals and also other revenue sources. And then you can increase the stay frequency. So there are potential in the domestic market like staycations. You can focus on different type of destinations where they're coming from and make sure that you capture the incoming markets from different destinations. And then on the B2B side, it's very important to keep following up on your contracted guests. So all the corporate accounts, and you have to make sure that you get the number of room nights and the revenue that was promised in the agreement when you signed the agreement with the customer. And then MICE business, recurring meetings on a quarterly, like quarterly business reviews or board meetings or things that occur on a regular basis. And then how do you decrease the churn rate? So destination churn, we talked about that already, that it's a once in a lifetime destination. There is no quick fix. You cannot do much about it. You can still produce a fantastic experience, so they will actually recommend people to go to the destination. And then we call the second part the hotel churn, and that is that the guest returns to the destination, but not to your hotel. So in that case, you have to improve the guest experience because they were not super happy with your experience, and that's why they returned to the destination, because they wanted to come back to the destination, but they choose another hotel. And then you have the detractors, that the guest is unhappy and they tell a lot of other people. So in this case, you have to improve the guest experience as well. So yeah, back to you, Detlev, as a summary, I guess.
Thank you very much. Now, if you like to follow this idea of total revenue forecast and follow the bold approach or the modern approach, this first step is you have to look at your data, collecting data, but also looking at different data points. Where are we? And also what's the quality of this? How are they structured and standardized to a certain extent, etc. And even maybe focus on a CDP, customer data platform, to outsource this to the cloud, to kind of restart system. Or you have already sophisticated PMS system, as Anders outlined, which already have done this work, and you have already quite good amount of data available. Okay, data cleansing is next thing, and data cleansing in this case is really the issue of removing duplicates. You know, you have many customer profiles, looks different, it's the same person, and that's a big issue, because if you follow this logic, you have tremendous revenue opportunities, but it doesn't match up with the real numbers and real figures. Okay, identifying the customer with existing customers, because if you want to follow this approach based on existing customers plus personas, you have to be very critical about the customer worth. You have to look at the consumption patterns, always what you might have overseen, etc. I always say, look at all the revenues, how it adds up. If you look at the number of customers, is it really adding up? And estimated potential in terms of guest spend and then customer lifetime value. Now, in terms of churn rate, you heard already from Anders that depending on what kind of hotel category you are, depending which destination you are, you might have not a chance to get customers back all the time. They might come back once a year, might come back in 2 years' time, whatever. But even when you have a customer lifetime value, he might come back maybe, let's say, every 5 years. But if he's 25, that's a quite good CLV value for you in the long term. So we have to look at this as well. As I said, in the interest of time, we are already a bit about 2 o'clock. The customer acquisition cost. Here, the question is for future master classes, you know, how to develop a customer acquisition cost data project. It means you have to come up with meaningful questions, business questions, to get an idea from the descriptive to prescriptive level, you know, how to combine different data sources. I give you a quick example, not linked to CIC for a certain reason. I give you a quick example from a Singapore hotel, well-known hotel. I don't name it, but very, very well-known hotel, which focus on data projects like this. They have a market, let's say they focus with their marketing spend on Vietnam. They invest a certain amount of marketing dollars in Vietnam. Now, this is one data project already on its own, but the beauty of this comes if you link it with another data project, looking at the incoming bookings from Vietnam. Now, at the first glance, it looks great. Huge spend of marketing dollars in Vietnam and huge revenues coming via bookings from Vietnam. So it looks like it's balanced. But if you come to the level of preparing and developing meaningful questions, you asked, of course, a bit more for granular data and for more detailed information, okay? What are the marketing cost breakdown, okay? And then you look at the bookings. What is the ratio of direct to indirect? And the ratio was disastrous. It was about 5% in direct bookings, and the rest was all indirect third-party bookings. What happened, if you look at this as the data project was finalized, we realized they spent a huge amount of marketing dollars in Vietnam, and they got almost all bookings back from OTA, so they paid twice. They paid marketing costs and they paid commission costs. It was a waste of resources, definitely. So this data project with the right set of questions can help you to look at your balanced resource allocation and maybe some gaps and some issues where you have to focus on. Action plan for total revenue forecast. Clear objectives and key results, what you expect. Responsibilities in terms of revenue managers, but also the department heads and involving the chief financial officer, okay? Access to data, you have to check, can I collect the data? Are there data? Are the systems integrated? Are the system interfaced? And the data flow is at a granular level, as with most details needed. Which is information vital to have? And if you look at our bold approach, you need all information around existing customers. How often they come, how much they spent, which time they're coming, which booking channel they use, which time they have this the lead time, how much in advance they book through, whatever, you know. Is it how much time from the last day to the next day, you know, how much lead time is in between that you can influence this and help maybe create some impact. All such aspects, very important to know. Process, define the process. How often you run this total revenue forecast. At the starting point is normally monthly, but the more you go down to weekly to daily, and nowadays in terms of automation, it's possible, systems allow for such things, the more accuracy or the higher accuracy you can achieve, okay? What are systems and who are the what are the reporting lines? For example, chief financial officer, head of departments, revenue management team, general manager. Implementation involving all roles in the commercial team. So we talk about marketing, we talk about sales, and we talk about revenue management, system setup, and training on the forecasting methods, on this new approach, on CIC, on CLV, on this really new idea. Get rid of this mindset. We have a number of rooms, we have to sell them, and that's done. It's much more than this. reporting as already outlined, to top management, and of course within the commercial teams to share, especially again synergies. Revenue management teams knows best what are the data where they already face high demand and where is no need to run any sales activities or any marketing campaigns. And revenue management team knows also very well when we have faced periods of low demand, we can do almost nothing. So let's run a marketing campaign to get some heads and beds. Revenue management team has the knowledge, but it must be shared with the other teams. Outlook and implications. We assume from our loads of discussions we have had, Anders, but also other colleagues in our small team, we assume it will be the individual tells, maybe smaller regional chains will be the front runners to pilot this, to make it work, total revenue forecast, okay? Very important aspect is of data quality. As I said, just to crunch data, huge amount of data we have in our hotel industry, in different systems, CRM, PMS systems. To crunch through this data set, it's about data quality. All the duplicates, for example, must be removed. Otherwise, we get the wrong picture and we have a catastrophic forecasting, okay? And then in the long term, we hopefully see the shift to a new revenue management metric, revenue per available customer. Now, at the moment, I am working hard with another group of academics on conceptualization of RevPAC, revenue per available customer, because the point is, take one very basic example. Professor Remy is staying at a conference for 3 days and has a corporate account, the university pays his bill. 1 day more, he stays as a leisure customer on his own account and pays privately. And then on the next day, his girlfriend arrives, as I wish I would, and she pays then the last night. Now, who is then the customer? Who is then the common identifier? Professor Remy, the university, or is it 3 customers, Professor Remy corporate, Professor Remy private, the girlfriend? Just realize this, revenue per available customer is a tricky one. But if it's done well, managed well, and very clearly defined, it has a huge potential, huge potential. And
but there will always be a lot of outliers in those things, and now you take an example that is maybe an exception, but you will also have a lot of very straightforward cases, and maybe as hoteliers we need to start with the simple things first, and then we can refine things a little bit also.
I agree, definitely, yeah. Definitely.
So, yeah.
That's it. And now time for a question, I guess, all right, Anders?
Yeah, questions. And when we wait for some questions, it's also both Professor Remy and I, we have been writing and thinking a lot about this, and I write in my blog. It's at demandcalendar.com/blog, and I write 2 blog posts per week, and it's a lot about total revenue management, and it's also about market segmentation and all these kind of things. And it's not a pitch for our product. It's just to share information and thoughts about how hotels can become much better in running their businesses. So have a look at that. There are more than 150 different blog posts there right now. So it's a lot of things to look at.
Yeah, definitely. I read it all the time. It's really interesting, and we have to move forward. So we need this really inspirations from thought leaders like Anders, to move forward, because at the moment situation, in a certain way, COVID helped us, to review the whole business model and to look for new ways to optimize our business model and the revenues.
I'm wondering, Detlev or Anders, do you have that handy on your computers? You can just share your screen. We have a quick look at that blog just so we get a visual on what it looks like and the address.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to sign up for that, actually.
Maybe I can do that.
You do. I mean, it's definitely, Detlev, as you said, it's definitely a time of change for revenue management at the moment, right? It's
I have to try to hold the piece of paper into the camera.
yeah.
We are in
Wow.
2022, right? 22, but the camera system doesn't catch it. So no.
Oh, there on an angle it does for some reason.
I think Anders can.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Oh, I'm not allowed to share right now. So
I knew, let me make sure you can share. Hang on, you should be able to. My goodness. Okay, you should be able to.